Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headache stack. Restlessness to hell and back.
This year, it feels like every smartphone brand is chasing the whole Pro Max trend, stacking on features and inflating specs just to stay relevant in the premium segment. But there's one brand that's already a major force in the high-end market, and instead of slowing down, it keeps pushing the limits of what a Pro Max device should be. Even though this flagship arrived a bit later than everyone expected, it still managed to surprise us. Honestly, even more than we thought it would. So let's not waste any more time. This is the Huawei Mate 80 Pro Max. A quick shout out to my tech partner from China for sharing this video. A big thank you for making this possible. Hey everyone, it's Maiky from Maiky. If you love staying updated with the latest gadgets, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our exciting tech content. The Mate 80 Pro Max looks noticeably different this year. First, the camera module is back to the classic star ring style, and the dual ring layout across the rear panel gives it a stronger, more futuristic vibe. Another big shift is the frame. Huawei ditched the curved edges and went with a flat, right-angled design. Combined with an all-metal Xuanwu frame and second-gen Kunlun glass, the overall durability takes a big leap forward. The last time we saw a fully metal-supported body was the iPhone 17 series, before wireless charging pushed every brand back to glass. So now the question is, will the Mate 80 Pro Max bring back the glory days of the all-metal smartphone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This metal back also debuts a new light-carved micro-texture finish. In simple terms, the rear panel has fine engraving-like patterns that feel smooth and premium to the touch. So what do you think about the Mate 80 Pro Max's design? If you had to rate it out of 10, what would you give it? All right, moving to the front. To match that flat-edged frame, Huawei equipped this phone with a 2.5D dual-layer OLED display, officially called a super clear and exquisite screen. Not only does it get brighter, but it also uses less power and is rated to last longer. In real tests, full-screen manual brightness holds at 1053 nits, and with boost enabled, it peaks at 1841 nits. This dual-layer OLED panel is seriously impressive. I'll put up a spec chart here. Feel free to pause and screenshot or bookmark it if you need the details. And yeah, memory prices have definitely jumped lately. Now let's get to the part everyone's waiting for, the Kirin 9030 Pro. There's a lot of curiosity around this chip, and since it's still new, the information we have is limited. But here's a quick breakdown of its CPU and GPU structure. The Kirin 9030 Pro uses a 1+4+4 9-core layout, which means one more big core compared to the previous 9020. Clock speeds are up too. The ultra-large core gets a 0.25 GHz boost to 2.75 GHz, the large cores jump 0.12 GHz to 2.27 GHz, and the small cores rise by 0.22 GHz to 1.72 GHz. Both the large and ultra-large cores support hyperthreading, and the GPU has been upgraded to the new Maloon 935. Looking at these numbers, it's clear the peak single-core and multi-core performance should see improvements, especially multi-core, thanks to the extra core. But as we all know, raw peak numbers are just on paper. What really matters is the efficiency. So let's see how the 9030 Pro performs in actual gaming. First, with Honor of Kings in HD quality at 120 FPS, the Mate 80 Pro Max averages 119.9 FPS with power draw at 2.4 watts and max chassis temperature at just 33.7 degrees Celsius. That's better power efficiency than the Mate 70 Pro, which means energy efficiency has definitely improved. Next up, Genshin Impact. The game recently received optimization for Harmony OS, so let's see how the 9030 Pro handles the highest graphics settings in a medium load scenario. Both the Mate 80 Pro Max and the previous gen model hover near full frame performance, averaging around 59.5 FPS. The Pro Max pulls only 3.2 watts on average, and the highest temperature hits just 37 degrees Celsius, both lower than the Kirin 9020. So yes, the 9030 Pro is clearly more efficient under low to medium loads. Now, you might be wondering why Harmony OS Genshin seems to behave so differently from its Android and iOS versions. Well, Harmony OS 6 forces frame insertion, which makes the monitoring tools show higher frame rates with lower power consumption. If the system were truly rendering 60 raw frames, the power numbers would definitely be higher. But regardless of that, real-world results show that the Kirin 930 Pro does offer improved energy efficiency compared to the 9020 in everyday scenarios. Better efficiency means better battery life, cooler temperatures, and smoother day-to-day performance. With the SoC part covered, let's jump into the camera system. From RYYB sensors to variable apertures, from X-Mag tuning to the new Hongfeng color system, Mate series cameras might not always be the strongest on paper, but they're definitely among the most innovative. This year's Mate 80 Pro Max stays true to the Mate series tradition. So let's start by checking out what's new on the camera hardware side. At first glance, the main camera might look unchanged, a 50 megapixel 1 to 1.28 inch RYYB sensor, but the model isn't the same as before. Based on the limited info available and a few hints from the launch event, it seems this sensor might actually come from Suite rather than Huawei's previous generation design. The big jump in dynamic range shown on stage supports that idea too. If this is true, it means Huawei now has more influence and flexibility in how high-end CMOS sensors are developed and tuned. As a certain master once said, an ultra-wide camera needs to be truly wide. While a lot of brands are narrowing their ultra-wide angles, Huawei's sticking to its wider view actually feels refreshing. A 13mm field of view might have been average a few years back, but heading into 2025 and even 2026, it's still among the best you can get. Now, the biggest upgrade this year is clearly the telephoto setup. We're used to seeing dual telephoto systems, but this combination is pretty unique. The first telephoto is a native 4x lens with a 90mm equivalent focal length. It's also 50 megapixels with an RYYB sensor, and it's definitely improved from last year's version, though the exact size and model haven't been revealed yet. The aperture is f2.1, and it can focus as close as 5 centimeter, making it perfect for portraits and macro shots. The second telephoto is a 6.2 bytes periscope with a 140 millimeters equivalent focal length. It also uses a 50 megapixel RYYB sensor with OIS. It doesn't activate side by side with the rest of the lenses. You'll have to tap 4x again or zoom manually to 10x or more. But once it kicks in, the optical quality zoom takes a big step up. Photography lovers will know the classic 28 to 200 millimeter lens by the nickname all-purpose travel lens. So what should we call a setup that covers an equivalent 13 to 300 millimeter range? Feel free to drop your best name ideas in the comments. That wraps up the hardware, but don't forget the upgraded Hongfeng primary color system. The entire Mate 80 lineup now uses it. People often say capturing accurate colors matters more than capturing beautiful colors. And that's even more true for Huawei because RYYB sensors behave differently from traditional pixel layouts. We'll have to see how all of this plays out in real shooting. In daytime photos, the Mate 80 Pro Max holds its own against Golden Wolf's Flagship. Both are top-tier performers in today's smartphone world. Look closely though, and you'll notice the Mate 80 Pro Max tends to go slightly brighter with a bit more contrast. It gives the images a playful, lively vibe even though the hardware differences are small. The new Hongfeng color system also does a great job restoring natural tones. The Mate 70 Pro tended to push reds a little stronger than reality, especially in ultra-wide shots. The Mate 80 Pro Max fixes that with noticeably better cross-lens color consistency. Check out this example during sunset, a time when white balance often goes wild. Every focal length from the Mate 80 Pro Max reproduces nearly the exact tones you'd see with your own eyes. That second generation Hongfeng color tuning is really pulling its weight. In scenes with higher contrast, the Mate 80 Pro Max steps even further ahead. Compared to the slightly grayer look of the Mate 70 Pro, the 80 Pro Max handles brightness transitions more naturally and keeps more highlight and shadow detail thanks to the upgraded hardware. Huawei really knows how to make full use of wide dynamic range. As for telephoto performance, there's no contest. The Mate 70 Pro's 4x lens still holds its ground at its native focal length, but once you jump to 10x or higher, it simply can't compete. The Mate 80 Pro Max's advantage in detail, clarity, and processing is obvious at a glance. If you love shooting with telephoto, this phone will make you very happy. Night photography follows the same pattern. The new Hongfeng system gives more stable and accurate color at night, and both highlight control and dark area detail are better than on the Mate 70 Pro, especially with telephoto. But the Mate 80 Pro Max still needs some tuning. There are moments where the processing can be a bit heavy-handed, and certain frames show signs of algorithmic overwork. Also, Huawei's night style tends to brighten scenes more than they appear in real life. On the upside, this makes details clearer. For example, in this extremely dark night sky shot, the stars are surprisingly visible. With your eyes, the scene looks much darker. If you prefer a more realistic nighttime mood, just tap to meter on the bright areas or slide down the exposure. Now look at the upper right corner. See that 5A logo? It doesn't mean you're at a tourist attraction. It's actually Huawei's new symbol for communication strength. Their already impressive connectivity gets an upgrade. We ran several network speed tests in different environments, and the Mate 80 Pro Max consistently led the results. It also includes Huawei's exclusive communication features, from satellite messaging and satellite weather to 2.4G wireless communication up to 7 kilometers, 700 megahertz emergency communication, and even using the flashlight to send Morse-like signals. Even without network coverage, it gives a strong sense of security. After spending time with the device, it's clear that Huawei's idea of Pro Max isn't about blindly piling on features. They follow their own rhythm and focus on meaningful upgrades. And compared to the Mate 70 Pro and the similarly positioned Mate 80 Pro Max, this new model actually comes in cheaper at the same memory tier. This puts its competitiveness far beyond the usual value for money comparisons. You might not feel it just from hearing about it, but if you buy one and try it yourself, the difference becomes obvious. To borrow Andy Lau's line from Huawei's concept video, know what you want, know even more clearly what you don't want, and make your persistence worthwhile. That line sums up the Mate 80 Pro Max perfectly. That wraps up our 2-day hands-on review of the Huawei Mate 80 Pro Max. We still want to test more and bring you deeper data, but for now, that's everything we've gathered from the unit we received. See you in the next one. Bye.